What if all of this is real? The magic systems and the religions don't have to account for each other to be real. It's not like, well, it's all this one thing and everyone else thinks is wrong. It's all of these different systems can operate independently and no one of them is wrong.
Welcome to More Magic, a fantasy book podcast. I'm your host, Demi Utley.
And I'm your co-host, Marianne Boules.
We have our tea, our cozy blankets, and a lot of opinions. But be warned, today's episode has spoilers, so listen at your own risk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the More Magic Book Club podcast. Today is a very fun episode for two reasons. First, Marianne is back. Welcome back, Marianne.
I got to be back. My brain isn't working, or I should say 80% capacity. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm happy to be here.
I think you're going to do great. And today we are talking about the Golem and the Jinni by Helene Wecker. And Helene herself is here to join us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining. I know this is very late because this book has been out for 13 years
13
now?
years, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for joining. When I reached out, I was like, I hope she still wants to talk about this.
Yes.
And it's crazy because it's still, I mean, we'll talk about this with the themes, but even being 13 years old, I feel like it's still very applicable for the world today and life today. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. I think this will be really fun. For anyone who's unfamiliar with you, do you want to give kind of like a quick little introduction?
Sure. Hi, I'm Helene. The Golem and the Jinni was my first book and published in 2013. Since then, there have been 2 sequels. It is now a finished trilogy, the 3rd book coming out this September 15th. And let's see, I live in the Bay Area of California. And that's basically me and my life, and I garden, and I've got a couple kids and a dog.
It sounds like the dream life, honestly. That's like
I can't.
You have a garden in the Bay Area? Dream life.
I do. And that's we are in the deep burbs, and that's how you get the garden. Is you gotta sort of go farther afield. But it's been worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very opposite coast of the book, which is set in New York. So for anyone who's listening, if this is your first time listening, this is a spoiler episode. So we are going to share a lot of spoilers. As I said, the book's been out for 13 years, so I don't feel too bad for this one because it's been around for a while. But I think this is perfect for anyone who is excited about reading the new book when it comes out, but just kind of needs a little refresher. I think this will help kind of jog everyone's memory of like, oh yeah, what happened if you don't have time to reread it. So I'll just give a quick summary. So I'll try to keep this short. I always end up going too long, but so basically it's about the Golem who is created when this man wants a wife, and I was horrified. I actually wrote in the Storygraph, we have like a buddy read on Storygraph where you can comment, and I on the first page I was like, I hope he doesn't survive the ship ride over to America. And then he did, and then I was like, oh no, I feel really bad for saying that.
I was like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God for appendicitis in 20th century and 19th century.
Yes. I actually had a class of kids read this book, and I did a meet and greet with them, and they decided that the hero of the book was Rothfeld's appendix.
Yeah. A fun fact, I got my appendix taken out when I was 17. And I always think about how also fun fact, my mom, my brother, and I all got our appendix taken out 6 months apart. And I always think about how if it was just 100 years before, my dad would have been left with like no one. Isn't that crazy? And so to see it kind of play out, it was... Don't get me wrong, I still think that appendix was the hero. But it's also just interesting to think about.
Yeah. A lot changed in 100 years. And you can expect to survive that these days.
Yeah.
That's, well, I mean, that's something that we'll definitely want to talk about is like how real the history in this book felt. So just quickly summarize. So the appendix saved the day in the very beginning, and she comes to America, to New York, and then has to learn how to live without a master. She meets this rabbi who like kind of teaches her, and then she starts baking, which is very fun, and kind of starts to live her life. And then I'm like, there's so many characters. I'll just try to do this in like 30 seconds. And then there's the Jinni who is trapped. He's normally a free fire spirit. I don't even know how you would describe it. But he's trapped in a human body and comes out of a lamp, very Aladdin-y, like Arabian Nights, which I loved. And then he's in New York and he starts, I think he's a tinsmith. Is that what it's called? He's like making stuff out of metal and very creative and artistic. And then they meet and they become friends. And then they learn that they have essentially the same master, who is this evil guy from Poland. Is he Polish? I think
would have been like the Prussian Empire. But ethnic Polish Jew in the Prussian Empire back then, and in one of those areas that sort of traded. The borders got redrawn with each war, and sometimes I think is now actually, is it now Ukraine? No,
oh my gosh.
I think it is actually Poland now. But just one of it's like, is it Poland? Is it Germany? Is it Russia? Is it Prussia? Is it whatever? It's just the same place.
Yeah,
somewhere in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And he's very scared of dying because he had a dream where it seemed like he had a dream where he went to heaven, and then they were like, no, you're not welcome here. And then we learned later that he was this like evil, I forgot the name, but this like wizard in Syria.
Ibn al-Walid, son of the boy. By the way, my rudimentary knowledge of Arabic, I was like so proud of myself. I was like, ooh, I know these things. Like, ooh, al-Hadid means iron.
Yep. This is it's all thanks to my father-in-law. He's the one, like, I had to run everything by him and make sure that everything was correct because I know maybe a dozen words of Arabic and I was just terrified of getting things wrong.
Well, it came, I mean, I didn't know. Okay, that makes sense. Because I was going to say it's like really good. I mean, I know like 100 words in Arabic, so I'm not that much orders of magnitude better off. But like, I was like, there's layers here.
I'm glad that came through, but it's all thanks to him.
Yeah, I, on the other hand, completely missed all of it because I don't know any Arabic, but I did get the Aladdin reference kind of, the genie and the lamp. So, so I think we'll just end the summary there. And then basically they have to imprison the evil guy. And then we get to see what happens in the next two books, which was like such a I'm so glad I'm reading it now and not 2013, because now I can actually just go read the next two books.
That is what I'm hoping for now that it's like a finished trilogy. I know I have so much sympathy for people who are like, I am not going to read it until it's done, until the whole story is done, however many years that is. So I'm not sitting waiting for the next book. And now you can see the entire, the whole story.
Yeah. I do remember when I finished that book in 2013, 2014, it was agony because I loved it. And I was like, I must, like that pain of waiting. Oh, what a pain. Like it's such a unique pain to readers. And I guess maybe TV watchers, like, I'm sure Game of Thrones every year was hard for people to bear, but it's been years. So I'm super, and by the way, even though I was obsessed with this book, and every time we do a genre episode, I find a way to plug in the Golem and the Jinni. So it's been mentioned multiple times on this podcast. And I didn't know that there was a sequel and a third book, trequel. I don't know.
Part 3, trilogy.
Part 3? Yep. I didn't know. So now I'm like, oh my God, how did I miss this? So if you're someone else who loved the Golem and the Jinni, get on the second book now.
The second book is called The Hidden Palace. It landed in 2021, sort of COVID years, lost book, didn't. And it was a little hard to publicize, but it's there and it's slowly finding its readers. And I'm hoping now that we can get more people to read the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm one I already bought as soon as I finished, because I now something that's new about me is I'm an Audible reader now, not a book reader because of motherhood.
Yes.
But as soon as I finished the Golem and the Jinni, by credit, Hidden Palace, reading that after this episode, and then getting on to the third.
That was when I made the switch too. I mean, maybe it's not the switch because I do like pretty much equal audiobook and physical reading now. But like, you know, that whole breastfeeding and laundry, you can get a lot read during breastfeeding and laundry.
Yep.
You know, it's like it can't be anything too cerebral, you know, but you can work your way through some pretty fun books.
Yeah.
Well, and also I feel like I always listen when I'm doing the dishes. That's like the other thing too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so let's like dive in because we have so many like things we want to talk to you about, but we'll just start with the very, very like kind of easiest one. Well, I guess maybe it's not easy, but so this is set in turn of the century New York, turn of the, I guess,
20th.
Yeah.
20th. Yeah.
So why that setting? How did you land on that?
You know, honestly, it was the sort of thing where you make a decision that's almost spur of the moment that you maybe have like 2 or 3 minor justifications for. And then it's once you start to explore the consequences of that decision, it becomes like, oh, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And maybe that was a good thing. You know, what happened was I came up with this story idea when I was a grad student at Columbia University, doing, you know, getting my MFA in fiction. And I was writing these very realist short stories that were about my family history and my husband's family's history, around issues of immigration, my Jewish American family coming over, his Arab American family coming over, as well as Polish Catholic on his side as well. But it was like this multi-generational story cycle, and it was very true to life and very like MFA short story, you know. And I was just not having a lot of luck with it. It just felt kind of rote. Like I knew these stories already. I wasn't really exploring them. I was just getting them down on paper. And a friend of mine in the program challenged me to look at it differently. To like, she knew what a nerd I am and how much I love sci-fi and fantasy. And she's like, this is the stuff you're always talking about in class. So why don't you figure out a way to do that with this? And that really spun my head around and made me consider the deeper elements of like, okay, if I'm going to transpose this to, you know, different characters, to fantastical characters, how are we going to explore like the immigration story in American history between, you know, Jews and Arab Americans through this like fantastical lens? I'm like, okay, so what if instead of like Jewish girl, Arab American boy, what if we make them a girl golem and a boy genie? And at that point, I saw them basically in New York. That was like the picture that came to my mind. It was this is an Ellis Island story. This is a coming to America, you know, the grand tale of you know, turn of the century immigration when it was the heyday. You know, when you could basically get into the country with a few dollars in your pocket and you pass the health test and they just let you in. And so, you know, and I knew like those were like the 3 facts that I knew, right? And so I was like, okay, we'll do it then. And because I wanted them to be able to meet. I wanted them, you know, and New York, I was living in New York at the time. That's probably partially what prompted it. But knowing, you know, New York as it is now, but even more so back then, how, you know, each neighborhood, each ethnicity, you had your like 5 or 6 blocks and right up against each other with like a little melding at the edges. And if you're going to bump into each other, it's going to be in Manhattan. It's going to be, Lower East Side, Little Syria, which I didn't even know existed, at the time. And I, once I started researching where, the Syrian, which now we call Lebanese, because back then it was all Greater Syria. They were from, Christians from what is now Lebanon, and they all gathered at the tip of Manhattan, what's now basically the financial district. And so, just having then, once I figured that out, just having to go to the library and learn. And I, at that point, thought I was still writing a short story. Oh
my God.
Yeah.
It's like such a grand vision. You're like, 2,500 words, 5,000 words.
Maybe it'll be a novella, maybe. And then it just like in my mind, it got longer and longer. And as it got longer and longer, I had to research more and more. And what I was learning from my readers, like my readers in workshop, was, first I was starting to do like this sort of overview fairy tale of, they meet within like the first draft, they meet within like the first 12 pages of the story. And they were like, no, you need to slow down. Because what's interesting here is the details. It's the details of figuring out how these two supernatural creatures are going to live as human and pass as human and figure all this out as like, super immigrants, basically. So I had to just research because I knew nothing. And so I had to like sort of become an armchair historian in order to write this book. And I don't know if there's any point looking back on it where I sort of went, oh, I've dug too big of a hole for myself and maybe I should go back and make a different decision. I'm glad I didn't, because it would just ended up being the best setting and, with the most evocative details. But honestly, I spent so much time on the research that it really was a much, much bigger project than I thought I was getting into.
It pays off so well. The history, like me and Demi were talking, like you are the reason why I love this book the first time. First, the immigration aspect just hit so home for me. I am from the other immigrant mecca that is Los Angeles. So the Pacific side, not the Atlantic side, but same idea. Ethnic enclaves, all kind of butting up right next to each other, and so it felt so real for me. But also the vibe, like when I'm reading that book, I am in 1899. Like I am in Central Park with women in their, bustiers or whatever they're wearing, their caps, and like how I'm afraid when the golem is walking at night. I feel afraid for her because, that is inappropriate. That is wrong. But like, it's the like, oh, this is wrong. Like, what are people going to say about a woman alone at night? And like, I feel it. And so, like the history, that research really pays off just as a reader. So I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I loved it too. I feel like some of the details of the city itself, like there was one scene where I think it's in the morning and it described the trains on the elevated coming out and it was like knocking the soot that had accumulated overnight off. And I was like, it's so crazy to think about living in a place where they're burning coal. I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And like how different, because New York already is like kind of smelly,
No offense to the New Yorkers who are listening.
I feel like it's known for that, but it's new. I mean, there's like a Jay-Z song about, like the New York song, like New York doesn't need any publicity. It's like, everyone wants to go there, but it's still thinking about like that city is like, just imagining it in that point in time and how different it would feel. And I had to look up tenement because I didn't know what that meant. And the housing were essentially like low income housing and like how everyone was living and there's all of the rooftop, whole separate, instead of like an underground culture, it's like a above the city culture, which is just so fun. And I love that you took us through that.
because that's where people escaped before air conditioning, especially like getting up to the roofs and sleeping on the balconies in order to get any hint of air in those old buildings. And, God, I had to learn all of this about the old law tenement versus new law tenement structures and how they were set up, and, having shafts down the building that you could open your window onto and get some air, but you're staring across the shaft at your neighbor's window, and all the stuff that would accumulate down there. And but yeah, the learning about like the rooftop, almost like rooftop societies, that just of vagabonds, or people who just wanted to get out of their house and just go up on the roof and smoke a cigarette and look out at the city. I mean, it just feels like an entirely different place in some ways than what we have now, but in other ways it's just exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what I love it too as the reader, is like you like the immigration aspect, very real, but then the above ground world, kind of like sewer people, but like roof people, was like, it took you to another place, to another time. And so the juxtaposition of those two is really fun. I also love the magic system. It's like a world where every religion, like all the mysticism, the mystic aspect of every religion is real. So like Kabbalism is real, and like the Jinni, the jinn of Islam, is real. And it's kind of hinted that like Shintoism is real, and like the magic system of Hinduism is real. And so it's all real. But then you also have it's the world as we know it, but there's like this mystic underlayer that's just. And this is something we'll talk about in the theme, but like the how there's atheists too. Even the magical creatures themselves are atheists, which I just thought was so fun and funny. We'll talk about that. But so that's like the world system. Is that right, Helene?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And partly, I mean, from my own Jewish background, I grew up, Reform Jewish in the 1980s and 90s. We didn't get a lot of the mysticism. It was more about identity in the Jewish life cycle, and make sure you weren't going to embarrass yourself at your bar bat mitzvah. And, it was, I didn't really discover golems until, I think maybe like high school, college, when I started to read more of like the sci-fi and fantasy that incorporated them. There's, the X-Files had a Golem episode, and I was deep into the X-Files. And starting to read more, of like, not the classic stories, but the stories that iterated on them. And then, as far as the Jinni side of it, I, like most Westerners, Americans, what I knew was Aladdin and Robin Williams and I Dream of Jeannie. And so there's those like classic tropes and all the, 3 wishes jokes and all of that. So when I went to go do that research, I was really astounded by how many variations of the jinn myth, the jinn legend, jinn, just the idea of there are these creatures. I mean, this is like a tenet of Islam to today. There are these creatures. They live in the world with us. We cannot see them, but they are here. And they, and they have souls and can be religious or non-religious. There's a surah of the Prophet Muhammad preaching to the jinn, which I just find amazing. And so just sort of taking that idea of, okay, well, what if all of this is real? And I mean, this isn't like a huge thing in the book. I mean, it's more just sort of this underlayer that goes through of like, okay, the magic systems and the religions don't have to account for each other to be real. It's not like, well, it's all this one thing and everyone else thinks is wrong. It's all of these different systems can operate independently, and no one of them is wrong and no one of them is right. And just that sort of diversity of magic and religion being as diverse as the humans that practice it. It was just a fun idea to play with, and I got some mileage out of that, and it was just a fun thing to think about.
Mm-hmm. It almost reminded me of like different languages, but speaking the same idea. So it's like there's this magic in the air, and the way you harness that magic and manipulate that magic for good or for evil is like it's just like an expression of your culture. But it's like it's there.
Yep. Sort of, yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to put it. It's like speaking different languages in order to make a similar point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That kind of segues into a question I had, which is, so if the Jinni is fire and the Golem is earth, does that mean there's also air and water, or have you explored that?
Changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Yes, maybe. It's fun to play with elements. The problem then is you have to start. Then it's like you got to categorize everything, and I really didn't want to categorize. There's mentions of different creatures in the first one, and one of them is that the jinn of the desert are scared of traveling through what's called the Ghouta, which is the oasis band that separates Damascus from the Syrian desert. And it's like a no-go zone because there are creatures in the water there that will grab you and pull you down and extinguish you.
I love that.
So that's one, I guess a water element. I don't know if I ever really got an air element.
Was that water, the oasis bit, was that something that you came up with, or was that also grounded in like folklore that like...
Oh gosh. The problem that I ran into with researching jinn and trying to like get it right, quote unquote, was that the stories have spread so far across the region and have been like worked through so many cultures and landscapes that they don't agree. There's a couple of threads that run through the stories. Jinn are made of smokeless fire. That's like one basic constant. Another is that they have, there's like a hierarchy of different kinds of jinn. And one is that they fear iron. In that very sort of global myth way of like elemental creatures or creatures of nature fearing iron, fearing man and development and the havoc that we wreak upon the natural world. Aside from that, it's all up for grabs. Whether they're substantial, insubstantial, shape-changing, possessing, the different, amounts of intelligence, different kryptonites, I guess, of, what it is that they fear or that will kill them. I'd made this decision that okay, if jinn are smokeless, I needed to give Ahmad, something to fear. Because otherwise he was just going to be too powerful. I couldn't make him so overpowered that he could just magic himself out of any situation and get out of the story completely. There had to be something like that was keeping him in place and, inside and making him live as a human. And I decided that one of them was going to be that he, water, basically immersion in water will kill you. Not just a little bit of rain, but, you jump in a pool and you die. And then I'm reading through the Arabian Nights, and one of the first jinn tales is this genie like rising up out of a lake to talk to a man, and I'm like, oh god, oh well. And so you just have to. I really literally had to decide. Okay, this is mine. This is my version. There is respectful, and then there is like tying yourself in knots because you can't, sort of figure out what version to follow. And I was like, this is my version. And I just sort of went with that.
Yeah, I think it was so fun. I loved the detail about that he couldn't go into water, especially like because it's an island. So it's the perfect limitation.
He's literally trapped.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And he's like, his like internal struggle of like, well, I used to be able to just like fly on the wind and go anywhere. And now I'm stuck in this human body and I can't even, because there's water, I can't even leave. And I loved those kind of like back and forth, which maybe we like shift and talk about the characters a bit. So I don't know how to pronounce anyone's name.
I really should have included a pronunciation guide because it's like two names that aren't, sort of standard American English. And so there's a lot of sounds in them. So
yeah, well, because we were talking and I was pronouncing the Golem Chava and Marianne was like, no, that's like not how you pronounce it.
So. And the audible, like the narrator who did a great job, but I think he pronounced the names in like digestible American sounds, which is totally fair. So he pronounced it Chava. Mm-hmm. But it's probably like Chava,
right. And Ahmad.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. So I was like, okay, like I get, because I do that too when I'm speaking to people. I'll be like, oh, Ahmed, because it's just why like stress them out, like trying to get them to say Ahmed.
They're like going to try to do it, feel really self-conscious. Yeah.
Yeah. So just say Muhammad, just make it easy on them. So I get where the narrator was going with. Mm-hmm. But also like, it wasn't lost on me. Like Fedwa, her name was Fedwa El Hadid, which means iron. Her last name means iron. And so the irony wasn't lost. Irony wasn't lost on me that was her name and he's afraid of iron. Like, oh, there's something here. Mm-hmm. And ended up kind of being his downfall. Was honestly, they were each other's downfall. Oh, R.I.P. to the Hadids. Oh,
yeah. Her dad was amazing. I loved her dad.
I know. Oh, my heart broke into a million pieces.
When he came back and stabbed the guy, I was like, oh my
take
God.
that.
Justice for Fadwa.
Yeah. Ouch. Yeah, that was pain. That was so painful. And then finding their bodies like after all those. But we're jumping ahead of ourselves. So let's talk about Chava and Ahmed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I don't know. They're just sort of what's funny is that they started off as like these vessels of. Well, she's, from those stories of, the family stories, the Jewish girl and the Syrian boy. But as soon as I started, really thinking about them and putting them in this place that was going to have certain effects on them, of like, how is it that they're going to live here? How is it they're going to survive? Then the themes started to change and they started to develop their own character traits. And they pretty quickly became people who are not me and my husband, but maybe retaining a couple traits. And they just developed. It was sort of this exercise of how different can I make them and still give them a connection? How differently can they see the world and the crazy humans they have landed among, without alienating each other so much that they aren't going to form a bond? Because what they have in common is their situation. And maybe that's just about the only thing they have in common at the very beginning, is that each of them, through different means, ended up on this floating island of millions of humans and are trying to make their way and figure out what to do about it and are hiding. And the fact that they have each other is what keeps them afloat while also creating its own problems and situations because they approach everything so differently. And I didn't realize when I started writing the book that it was going to become like this exercise in writing philosophical arguments.
So philosophical.
About, like duty to, what is it that you owe your community? What is it that your community owes you? What is that the difference between living an independent life and living a life connected to others, and how to find that balance, especially when you quite naturally fall into different ends of the spectrum, as the two of them do, and what they had to teach each other and how they were going to learn that. But yeah, they get to it all through like these arguments, standing on rooftops, looking out over the city, and those were a lot of fun to write. They were very tricky to write because it was like I had to decide what each of them needed to learn in a particular scene in order to go forward with a slightly different perspective that was going to end up in a place where, they could, they'd learned enough and they'd grown enough to really, sort of come together in order to solve the problem at the end. But it just... So I really did. Each of them sort of was created with the other in mind in my head. And I had this Post-it taped up to my next to my monitor for I think most of all I was writing the first draft, so years, that just said they exist to save each other. And that was sort of, and it was just a thing that I thought and wrote down one day, and I put it up there, and I just, looked at it every day of okay, these two, they're intertwined and they have to be.
Mm-hmm. That makes so much sense because I wrote in my notes, I love how opposite they are. So Ahmed is literally a free spirit enslaved. Mm-hmm. And Chava is literally a creature to obey without a master. Mm-hmm. And they those parts. And then there's consequences. There's consequences to unthinking obedience, but there's also consequences to unthinking freedom. And so you could see how they kind of fit each other to tamper the extremes of these personalities when they come together. Mm-hmm. And so I just love that. That's how they're saving each other throughout the series. And I also loved how slow it was. When I first read this book, I don't know how I missed the romantic aspect. I thought it was a platonic relationship. Now when I read it again, I'm like, duh, it's a slow burn. It's not oh, we're just best friends.
The slowest of burns is and I got dinged for that sometimes. It's I think people who are looking for the characters to be smoldering at each other by page 50, it's a little disappointing because instead they're just arguing with each other, but
I love that.
It's my love language.
Yes, I love that. It's actually so refreshing to see such a slow burn that you almost miss it. Yeah. Because that, that's how me and my husband met. We were friends for years. And we fought a lot. We fought a lot over books, over philosophies. So it's actually really, it was representation for me.
You are my ideal reader then. Yeah. That is perfect.
Yeah. And then I know, speaking of opposites, Rabbi Yehuda versus Rabbi Avram, they were using, speaking of using magic for good or for evil, they both use the same magic system, but one was doing it for selfish gains and the other one was doing it for love or for sacrifice. Do you have anything were you doing that on purpose? Because I kind of noticed how they were foils of each other. Was that on purpose? Probably.
Yeah, it went through my mind. I don't know if I made them deliberately opposite in that way, in that I think there's a lot of sort of balancing characters in this book, in the series as a whole, but also in this book, in the first one specifically. And I think I did have that idea in mind, sort of. And gosh, it's sort of hard sometimes looking back, and it's okay, was that an actual idea that I had and did deliberately, or did I at some point notice that was going on and decide to draw it out? And then it gets really chicken and egg. But I think what I wanted to do, sort of ultimately was, these are systems. It's sort of in the way that religion and religious belief can be harnessed for any number of intentions. The idea that then the magic can be harnessed for any number of intentions. And are those, ultimately good, ultimately bad? What is there's a thing that's present in many religions, that's certainly in Buddhist philosophy as well as in Jewish philosophy and religion, that's specifically about intention. There's, I think it's a Buddhist saying, all rests on the point of intention. And so, what is it that you're aiming to put into the world? What is it that you're trying to do? And, Yehuda Shulman is a deeply evil man. with fervent belief in God and a hatred of God as well, in the manner of like a jilted lover. And so in his hands, it's become perverted and twisted. Rabbi Meyer, who is sort of too good to live, he is, sort of the, deeply good, wanting to do the right thing even at his own expense. And like you say, they're using the same tools. And so, just, I don't know if it's a point I wanted to make or just sort of a reflection of this is, what humans do with tools. We use them for good or ill.
Yeah. Two rabbis, yin and yang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, R.I.P. to Michael. Like, ouch. How could you do this to him? Helene got married, found out his marriage was a sham, and then he dies. Oh,
yeah.
The pain.
And he was so good, too. He was like, I was hoping they'd figure it out.
There were drafts where he figured it out, but it just sort of had to... In the end, God, I feel so bad about Michael. He's sort of a schlemiel. He doesn't... It's like... You want him to clue in, right? It's like when the reader knows something that the character doesn't, and you're just sitting there waiting for the penny to drop.
Yeah.
And it becomes a stumbling block because in any story, and this is something that I basically learned writing this book, is it's really dangerous to give your reader more information than the character, because then they start to look like a fool and a patsy, even if they're not, even if it's something that they would never in a million years suspect, which is that, sorry, you just married a golem. And so I think he ended up getting sort of short shrift in the book. One of those situations where if I had 10 more years to write it, I could have figured out how to, give him a better ending and a better experience throughout the whole book. He just sort of ends up being the fall guy. But yeah, I feel bad for him.
Okay, I'll say, I actually, even though it broke my heart, I actually thought he had the perfect ending because of his like journey. Because he's like, first, I really see myself in him as like the child of immigrants who like, like the beliefs, like this is like the child of immigrant journey is a very unique one that I saw myself in him, like where he's like, I'm not like these people, who needs this when you have all of this? Like it's something very special that America brings that I'm going to say for the themes. But he's like, he has the journey of an unbeliever. Like he's someone who doesn't believe. He believes in making the world a better place, which is something that I also believe in. And he like dedicates he literally sacrifices his life to make the world a better place. So he's a deeply good person, but he also doesn't believe in like magic and like God and the greatness and like the fact that there could be more than the material things. And I think that we even talk about materialists. He also he talks about his materialist friends and things like that. But then in the last breath, he believes and he's brave. Like he looks evil, like magical evil in the face. And he, instead of cowering in front of it, he like gets his last word and he dies. He like dies in defiance. And like he, in his last breath, he believes like the way his uncle wanted him to believe. So in my headcanon, he's reunited with his uncle, his aunt, his mom, his dad. And so I feel like he had a good ending in the great beyond. But like it was just also really sad in the human sense because I'm like, like he didn't get a chance to live to an old age, but he died as a hero, I think.
Well, I'm glad you think that. He's a humanist and he is trying to do right by many as many immigrants as he can. And he's running a sheltering house at, basically the expense of his own health and the fact that he's living, maybe one step above abject poverty. And he does it, because he is a good person and he's a good person and an atheist. And that is, I think it was important for me to sort of make that point amongst all of my religious characters.
Yeah.
There needed to be someone who did not believe, but had faith in humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like that really tied into the larger like New York. Like it added that like kind of representation for all of the different types of people who would be existing there, and the different ideas. Because it's like Sophia and like the Winstons, like they were also a very different group, obviously. And I'm like, I don't even know if it says what religion they are. I assumed
they're Christian because someone married a Catholic and they were like dead to them.
Yes,
oh,
right.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They're very much the stereotypical like waspy original New Yorkers, probably descended from the Dutch settler, Protestant. But yeah, that was Sophia is a fun character, and if you like Sophia, you should definitely read Hidden Palace. But
I saw that she was in it, and I was like, because I was telling Marianne, I was like, I really want to know what happens with her, like in this, like
I have my prediction on that.
And I saw she's in the next book. I was like, okay, done. Yeah,
yeah. She came about because I was like, well, once Ahmad gets his feet under him, what's he gonna do? And I'm like, he's going to find the richest girl, like the most impossible girl to land, and he's going to land her because he's bored and he's like feeling himself, and he like this is going to be his challenge, And then I decided, okay, but then I had to think about the woman and be like, okay, well, what's her deal and why is she, maybe it's not that he's like all that. Maybe she's in a position where she is ready to sort of give herself over to someone in order to, even for one night, mentally like escape a life that is laid out in front of her. And so I drew up a whole backstory for her. And then she became a character in her own right. And then she took over, like certain parts of, she tried to take over the first book. She ended up taking over a lot of the second book. And she ended up being one of my favorites. But yeah, she does definitely come from, the very, that very high society sliver of New York, and which was fun to research and play with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think she was one of my favorite characters. I loved when we first see her and she's like, well, I'm going to leave the door unlocked and we're going to see if he comes. And then like when he comes on the balcony, I just kept thinking of Aladdin and the scene like where he's on the magic carpet with Jasmine. I don't know if that inspired that scene, but I was like, it had a very...
I thought that too. I felt that too.
Okay, you did.
Oh, were we right?
No, I wish you were. This is one of the funny things that is like retaining a couple aspects of my husband and me, which is that my husband, when we were in college, really liked to climb the balconies in the dorms.
Oh my gosh. So your real life was Aladdin.
Maybe he didn't climb up my door. It wasn't my dorm that he climbed up, but he would like he loved to do this trick where it's like if he knew that someone was on like the third floor of a dorm that had the balconies, and he would he'd like wave at them, as like he's leaving and they're going into the dorm, and then he would like climb up the balconies and wait till they got into their room and wave at them then, like, so he was definitely a bit of a mischief maker in the college years. And so that was sort of where I got that, is like he's going to climb the balcony. But I hadn't even thought about the fact that is very much like an Aladdin thing. Oh, Lord. Oh, boy.
I totally thought, because it really I love that it's based in like real life and not the Disney movie, but it had that feel, because it felt like a little, just like Arabian Nights to me. Like because he comes up and then he leaves the little figurine. Mm-hmm. And then he like at one point I think he's going to jump off, or she thinks he's going to jump off. And that was like what Aladdin does in the movie, onto the magic carpet. And
my God, after 13 years, you guys are telling me something I didn't know about. Like, I did not even think about that. I haven't seen the movie in so long. That's
Your
hilarious.
subconscious was so tapped into it. I loved it. It was honestly probably my favorite scene, because I loved her. Because I feel like a lot of times like Bridgerton and all this stuff, like the like rich girl who has to like be the virgin and like go
what's
on,
it called?
like,
the seasons. Go
like
for the
seasons. And like, she's supposed to be very prim and proper. And she's like, I want to like have adventures and I want to go and like, I want to go to India and I want to go. Like, I think she's the character I identified with the most.
Mm-hmm.
And she, and then, he comes and she's like, well, I shouldn't, but I'm okay. This is going to happen. And then,
Mm-hmm.
and then she ends up pregnant with fire. And I'm like, oh my God, that's where I'm like, I have to know what happens.
Yeah. I loved her ending. I'm so glad that she got to escape.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to see her in the sequel. Maybe I have time for one more character who we know is one of your favorites.
Okay.
I read in the back of the book.
Oh, yeah.
That you liked him.
He was the one I was like, when we talk about who dies and who lives, the fact that Saleh died, I sort of had to kill him at the end, and I felt so bad about it, but he gets a good death. But he was the character that I always knew what he was going to do. He was like, everyone else, it was like sometimes pulling teeth. Like, what are they going to do in this situation? And there were any number of like roads a person can go down. And I had to choose, sort of work my way through alternatives of like, what conversation is going to draw out an aspect? What encounter that Chava has is going to, how is she going to react to this? And what's that going to teach her so that she can move on? And Mahmoud Saleh, I always knew exactly who he was. I saw him. The way that I came up with him was that I was reading this article about Little Syria from 1890, 93, 98, something like that in New York Times about this picturesque new neighborhood full of, exotic people. It's like the most racist drivel.
It's like Orientalist.
Yes. Oh my God. It's like a master class in Orientalist description. But, this is before photography and newspapers. And so they would do drawings and, if someone just comes and does a sketch and then, it ends up in the article. And one of the illustrations was this man sitting on a curb, and he had like a small turban wrapped around his head, and he's sitting next to like this wooden churn on a cart, and he's got like this sort of drooping mustache and just the saddest eyes. And underneath it says, an ice cream seller.
Oh.
And I'm like, who is he? And I immediately his whole backstory. So I hate it when writers say, oh, it just came to me and I wrote it down. It's like, you suck and I hate you. But this actually, it just like came to me and I wrote down like everything that had happened to him that had gotten him to this place. He's like the one Muslim character in the book, and that makes him an outsider within the Syrian Christian community. And I was like, okay, what would have gotten him to America? And it was just like this tragic backstory. And as soon as I wrote it down, he became just like, I always knew what he was going to say. I always knew what he was going to do. And he was just sort of this steadfast person who, he gets his world rocked by the end of the story, but he doesn't change. That doesn't change who he is. It just changes how he perceives things. And so he was like my buddy for the whole thing in the book. Every time I got to a Saleh scene, I'm like, oh, thank God.
I feel like you could feel that when reading his scenes, because his story was just so tragic, but also very American. Like, I feel like that's like a story you hear of like, well, all of these things happened in the place where I was living before, so I'm coming to the US. But I love that he wasn't coming here for like the American dream. He was more like, I'm going to leave everyone and then just like go die on the streets of New York, basically. Yeah. And then he ends up like, I loved when he got his like sight back and that he was able to see again, and his experience of that, and just like kind of, he was like in this euphoric state for like the very end of his life. And then he goes and, traps this like all power, like, I guess not all powerful, but this very evil like being.
Very, very powerful.
It was, And it was perfect since like the Jinni had been in his, or like the piece of the the Jinni had been in his mind. And I don't know, I thought it was beautiful. I loved his story.
Thank you.
He also dies in defiance.
Yeah.
And he's also, like there's a lot of tragedy in this world, but a lot of redemption and like hope, which is something me and Demi always love to see, is not tragedy for tragedy's sake, but people persisting despite. Even in death, they persist. And we really liked his character. It makes me really sad that there was a real ice cream man. Who was so sad that the illustrator decided to draw him sad. Yeah. Like, how sad was he? Oh my God. So it's real.
I mean, it was probably a really hot day, you know?
He's like, when will I go home? Yeah. Maybe we could even talk, like, we're kind of touching on it a little bit, the themes. I do want to say, though, because like the two people I saw myself most in was Mikel, so I was like, oh, crap, he died. But also Miriam Fadul was such a treat. I really saw myself in her too.
I just like that. Yeah.
A girl who just really who meddles in people's business, but for their own good.
Yes. And somehow she is like the most gossipy and meddlesome person, but everyone feels so blessed to have her in their life for that reason, that she's just so darn good at it.
Yeah. It's not gossip for gossip's sake. It's because I am intent on making people's lives better. Yes. So I will do what I have to do. I have gotten people married.
Oh, you have?
Yes. Just to say, because I think she got people married in the book too. I'm like, yep, that makes sense.
Yep.
Like knows like.
She uses people's problems to solve other people's problems.
Right.
She matches them up, and everyone loves it. And she thinks the best of everyone, and so people want to live up to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm that good, but I will say, like, her sense, like her sixth sense for troublesome people I have, and just like I said, the meddlesome busybody. Like, I must get involved. I must help these people. In real life, some people do not like it when I meddle. It does not stop me, But anyways, okay, so some themes I love. We've been talking about this, the theme of immigration. I feel like this book is very deeply patriotic in the way that of My America, which is like in what other world could a golem and a Jinni meet? It's very true to life, like, you know, like maybe even your own love story. That doesn't really happen like in the Middle East, for example. And like that kind of stuff, like where different stories come together to make new stories. Like different cultures coming together to build new, like that is a very deeply American thing that's very deeply experienced and very deeply lived in my own life. Yeah. And so I loved seeing that here. Like it felt very true to life for me. A golem and a Jinni becoming lovers and best friends. Like it felt very true, even though it's a magic story, but it was real.
Well, thank you. I mean, that was deliberate on my part, you know, in the reflection of my life, my husband's life, the lives of so many of my friends, people I know, and America being a place where this can happen, and it doesn't, you know, it's not like there aren't barriers and misunderstandings and assumptions that people have to, you know, work through, but that we are thankfully here able to do that. And I mean, unfortunately, the themes of immigration are, you know, becoming relevant yet again in this country, the current administration and the sort of nativist, you know, essentialism that is, you know, rearing its head again. And, you know, it's hard to, on the one hand, you know, sort of doing the research for this book and looking at all the different immigration movements and laws that get passed, it's like, oh, this is cyclical. You know, we find it, you know, every so ever many years, we sort of like, as a society, you know, or the people in charge put the walls up, and then the walls come down, and then we put them up, and then we bring them down. And so that is sort of like the long view. But it's just so heartbreaking to see today, you know, people being vilified and stopped on the street and whatever for, you know, having the temerity to come here in the same way that so many of our, you know, predecessors did. And it's, you know, having that hope and that sense of wanting to build a life for your family and your children. And America in its best being a place where that can happen. And America saved my family. You know, maybe America could have saved a lot more families, but we were the lucky ones. And so that was something, you know, it's something that it's sort of like a foundational element of my life. And so that, trying to show the best of that and the reality at the same time and through a fantastical lens. So, you know, it's all in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love how it was portrayed in this book. It kind of makes me think of one of the themes that I kept picking up on was this feeling of being unsafe in your body, which also relates to immigration because, you know, a lot of just like profiling, like, oh, you look like an immigrant. But then with the Golem, she didn't feel safe with herself. She didn't trust her body because she's like, well, what if I hurt someone and I don't intend to because I'm so strong. And also she like didn't know, like she had to like explore her body with like the pin, like the needles and see like, well, what happens? And she didn't know if she could like have kids. Like, I don't know, which I feel like was another theme also, like birth and creating life and things as well. But yeah, that like just the sense of feeling unsafe. And I thought that was really counter to the Jinni, who I don't feel like he felt unsafe in his body, but he felt trapped in his body. So there was a bit of like exploration of like your actual physical body in this as well, which I really loved. Yeah.
Cool. And that was, I mean, the Golem myth is building, it's like the Frankenstein story. It's basically building something that, you know, maybe you can control and maybe you can't. And either there's always the possibility of it getting out of hand and, you know, going on a rampage, you know, a threat to the very people it's meant to protect. And that's a very real part of who Chava is. And she is terrified of herself and what she can do. And she is, you know, ignorant of her own, you know, strength and abilities. And that's why she's learning, you know, she tries to do things like sticking the pins in her own arm to see what happens. You know, she's trying to figure herself out. And that is sort of opposite of Ahmad. You're right that he's like, I used to be so powerful and now I am constrained. And she's like, I would like a little more constraint, please, because I am terrified of myself. And so that is another thing that they argue about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I really liked that because at first I was like, oh, the Golem's a woman and like they're supposed to be subservient. And I was like, oh, I wish that it was, I wish that wasn't, I mean, it's perfect because you get to explore the themes of being a woman and like in this creature that is like even more almost gendered and not even gendered, but like in this classic like female, like feminine position in a way, like being subservient to someone. But then I just thought that the idea of like, there's so much about creation in this. And like we have, you know, the man who created her and was her master. And then also we saw like multiple pregnancies. We have Anna who's pregnant and then Sophia briefly. But thinking about like the idea of womanhood and that strength and like who else can like birth a child than some like, you know, like that's like such a painful thing to do and you have to have such a high tolerance for pain and like so much strength. And I kind of I ended up being like, oh, of course a woman has to be the Golem, like this like very powerful being who can, you know, create all of these pastries at like an inhuman speed. Like no man could do that, you know, like it's like, so yeah, I loved just like kind of that like theme around all of that.
It was really interesting to put a Golem in a with like the you know strength and power and you know unstoppability in a female body in 1899, and that now she's got to be sort of meek and subservient and she can't show people what she can really do. And you know if it was up to her, she would absolutely be like a stevedore. She'd be you know out building buildings or something, and she'd be you know working in construction all day long, but she can't. And so it's like she has to figure out how to, you know, make herself a little smaller in that way.
Yeah.
And it was not very female sort of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not lost on me that like Ahmed got to like neither of them slept, but Ahmed got to go through the streets at night where she just has to like sew the same dress over and over again. Like, what a horror that is.
Yeah.
Like I almost went crazy for her. It's horrible, but it was such a good example of how she like the gendered aspect of 1899. It's one of those things where I'm like, I'm so glad it's 2025 where I'm allowed to go out by myself.
2026.
2026. Oh God.
You're like, time stopped.
Oh God. There was a theme that I really loved that like they had again and again between Chava and Ahmed, which is the fight of religion. And it was just so funny to me that a jinn was atheist. Like he is literally a creature of, he's like, and it makes me think about us as humans because he's like, what do you mean there's no magic? That's so stupid. Who believes in magic? And he's literally a magical being, and makes me think like us, like what if like we're magic, like we are special, like, and we're like, what are you talking about? There's no magic, and we are like, our existence is magical, and like it makes me grateful to be alive. It's just because like you could see how dumb it kind of is to be like, oh, it's not special at all to be alive, like, but like he's literally saying this to a golem who has like been like who's brought forth by magic, and so I just love the irony of that, and it's like shows up several times, and I'm like, wow, that's just. Man, that's funny.
It's like there is no. It's the idea of like there's no magic. There's only science that hasn't been explained yet. You know any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I don't remember who exactly said that, but that idea of like. Well, in magic, in the like the religious magic of like, well, it involves belief, and it's like, okay, so if something is real and standing in front of you, you don't have to believe in it in order for it to be there, and so there is that sort of faith aspect that gets that becomes a. Is that real? Is that not? Is that, if I believe in something, is that the key in the lock, or does it just work regardless, And so that's, it's like one of the more like tricky philosophical conversations that they end up having of their many.
Yeah, that is such a like head scratcher. Like, oh, so if the thing is objectively real, does it lose its magic? And does it be like, is faith and like the mysticism of magic, is that a necessity for belief, like for religion? Oh, ow. Okay, my too complex for my brain.
Is the belief the power? Yeah.
Man, I feel like I want to just sit with that. I'm going to be thinking about this because I love the idea of belief, and so cool. I like the way you just presented that. I feel like I'm going to think about that. Yeah. Okay. Should we talk about some of our predictions and then do the lightning round?
Yeah.
Sure.
Here is my prediction for the Hidden Palace. Because I haven't yet read the second book, but I'm going to read the second and the third book that just came out for everyone listening. I believe that Sophia falls in love with the female jinn, and they become they roam, because she's kind of a free spirit, Sophia. And they kind of become like roamers together. Oh, and the spark that was in her belly that they kind of like did an abortion or something. I think that they just dimmed the spark, but the spark can grow again. And so they have a little genie half human, half genie baby that they raise together.
I love that.
That's my prediction.
Do you have any comments?
That is definitely a path that I could have taken, and maybe a couple of aspects of that show up.
Ooh, interesting.
In a different way than you're picturing. So, definitely give it a read.
Okay.
The suspense. My prediction, I was kind of thinking that with Sophia. I was like, I feel like maybe she is going to have a baby, or my theory was that she has powers, because there was some sort of like one line that was like, oh, maybe they're descended from like there's like gin in their like lineage or something. And so I was like, oh, does she have that? Or does she now she's that? So that was mine. And then my larger, like for the book 3, I was like, maybe the Golem, because I read the summary of that and she's like has a house, I think. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but
don't tell me I haven't read that far.
Okay, well, so my prediction was that she would like have a family of her own, maybe, and like they would learn that she would like almost become human, like she's still the creature, but like able to like exist in a different way without feeling like she needs to like have a master and stuff like that. So that's my predictions.
You two are you're good. You're getting there. There's stuff that these are all like problems that I wanted to solve, and they do show up in different ways. And it's in different. Oh God, how can I even put this without spoiling anything? Y'all are on the right track. I'll put it that way.
But if you were to give point, like who's more on the track?
Who wins?
I mean, honestly, I think it's a tie.
Ooh.
You are
Okay.
both on the right track in slightly different ways.
Okay.
Well, now we have to finish it, and we have a battle to see who predicted it. What would you say the vibes are of the next 2 books? Is it still like mostly New York, or do we see other places as well?
The second book, mostly New York. All 3 books, they're New York centric books, but we do in the second book see a lot of the Middle East as well, through Sophia's eyes. I'll just say that. The third book, there is some Chicagoing happening.
Ooh.
I lived in Chicago for 10 years, so I'm excited for that. Yeah.
So, and it's touches. It's like the beginning of the book. But that was also fun to research. I grew up outside Chicago, so I had to, it's not that I had to put it in, but it sort of came naturally as like, okay, we're the other big US city. Let's make it Chicago. And so vibe-wise, the second book it takes place over a much longer period of time than the first book. It's a span of 15 years. And it's more there's a lot of character development in it. That's because that's one of the things I wanted, one of the reasons that I made it a 15-year span was to see, if the first book is about the shock of immigration, and arriving in a new place. Okay, what's the second book going to be? It's going to be about assimilation. It's going to be, how does the place where you're living change you? And that's like a long, slow process. So I needed some scope in there in order to do it. The hard part was making it 15 years without making it like a book that was 15 times longer than the first book. So I had to figure out how to do that. The third book is more, there's like it's the most, I think, fantastical in terms of the plot, that there are machinations happening.
Interesting.
And more magic. We're here for that.
There's some more magic in the third one. And it's like the world broadens out a bit. So I would say that's the one where it's like there's a lot of pieces at play. There's a bit of a mystery happening, and it's a bit more of an adventure.
Oh, you're like, the gloves are off. We're going all in.
We're going all in. Exactly.
I am so excited.
Cool.
I am so excited. Does World War II play a role at all?
No. It comes up to 1930. That's yeah.
Okay, I love that.
World War I, definitely World War I. But I stopped before World War II.
Okay, so we get to see like the Great Depression as immigrants in the U.S. Or the beginning,
the very beginning, sort of the tail end of Prohibition, the beginning of the Great Depression. But everyone's got this sense that the world is changing, and it's not going to be for the better.
Dude, that's also very relevant to our current time.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm like, are we in the 1926?
Yeah.
Like up
There's
to
a
like
real
2026?
sort of Gilded Age feel right now.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, is the shoe going to drop and will we have food to eat?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I'm an optimist and an idealist. So I'm saying the shoe's going to drop and it's just going to switch the balance and we are going to be better off than...
We'll have more food to eat.
Yeah, than those who are hoarding everything right now. We'll just say that. That's my prediction for the larger world.
Amen.
So,
from your lips to God's ears, as they say.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so some quick lightning round questions. So these are supposed to be fun. So don't feel like you have to like... Hopefully they're fun. I'll just say that. I'm like, I don't want to put you on the spot. And you're like, oh my God, this is like... But the first one, I just had this idea because I loved the descriptions of some of the food throughout the book. And obviously, you know, there's like a bakery. And then there was one with the Jinni and he ate some, I think it was a dessert or something. I don't remember.
Kanafe, yeah.
Yeah, I had to look that up. I have never had that. I didn't know what that was. So if you were to like host a dinner party about this book where like you had dishes representing different characters, do you have any ideas for like what dishes would represent different characters?
Oh boy. Okay. Chava's got to be challah.
Totally.
That's her thing. And gosh, dishes for characters who don't eat. I think Ahmad probably. Oh, well, the kanafe would have to be. And that's another thing from my father-in-law. He makes amazing kanafe.
Does he make it with the custard or with cheese?
You know, he makes it with the cheese.
So
he makes it with and all of the phyllo, shredded phyllo on the top, and like a pound of melted butter, just sort of like
now I'm hungry.
To it, I know it's so good. And for let's see if we could have like a multi-ethnic group dinner, it would be like the challah, the kanafe, probably some brisket. If people are feeling a little flush with cash. The herring, I love herring. And I know that it's like, you know, basically it's peasant food, you know, but
are you talking about the fish that's in a can?
Yeah, it's like you can either get it brined, pickled, or you can get it in the sour cream. So you got to have a stinky fish on the table if it's, you know, if it's a real Jewish celebration. Yeah. And oh gosh, what else? Some lamb and pita and yogurt. God, okay, I'm just hungry now.
I'm like, what else? Tell me more. Tell me more. Give me more detail.
Gotta have tabbouleh. Gotta have simis, like the roasted carrots and potatoes and onions and like a sweet sauce. And now I just want lunch.
Now I'm like, what would go good with lamb? Maybe like black and white cookies because you like to represent Ahmed and Chava.
Yes, and that's a very New York deli thing, is the black and white cookies. So that sounds fantastic. What else did people, oh my God, people ate such interesting things back then. A lot of stuff in aspic, which, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that, but, you know, like the whole meat jello sort of idea.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Lots of, you know, consommes of soups of things. You know, if you're doing the more high society, like what would be served. Oh, ices. Got to have a shaved ice. Got to have ice. You got to have ice cream from Mahmoud Saleh.
Oh, yeah,
of course.
And, for dessert. To go with the kanafe. So, you can build a pretty good table.
Yeah. I would like to come to that table, please.
Okay. The next question we had is if you had to trade places with either Chava or I've gotten away with not saying it this entire time, with either the Golem or the Jinni. Who would you choose? Which one would you trade places with?
Oh my God. Oh,
and you can,
just in the sense of what would it be like, you know, to be a guy to be a guy who had confidence and who felt like, you know, not necessarily I am the king of all I survey, because, you know, especially by the end of the novel, he's been brought low a little more than that, you know, but to just walk through the world without a base level of watchfulness about, am I safe? Am I in a situation of, you know, where something's going to happen? To be able to walk anywhere at night and just feel like I'm fine. I can handle this. There's nothing can touch me. That would be amazing.
Yeah. I think every woman wants, like, I think every woman wants that, like, deep desire. Like, what is it like to just be at night, walk at night down an alleyway?
Yeah.
Well, and if someone attacks him, he can just like melt them. I don't know if he could do that.
Be gone, mugger.
Yep.
Okay. Another question we have is, are there any other historical periods that you want to explore that you haven't explored in this trilogy?
Gosh, everything's so interesting. The problem with getting up to like lived history is just having to be so true to life, and there is so much evidence and so much that you have to research. Like 1899, I could fudge a couple things because no one's gonna really, I mean, some historians will correct me, but no one's like, you know, that's not how it was when I was a kid, because, you know, that's just a bit too long ago. Interesting historical periods. Gosh, I mean, there's so much in the Middle East that you can explore, different areas of different times of history, different like moments in history that, you know, were consequential. World War I, there's a lot you can do during World War I. And it's this feeling of like, you know, sort of the Great War that's been in some ways forgotten. I mean, I just finished reading Angel Down by God, I'm blanking on his name. He just won the Pulitzer for it. I'll remember it later. It's about a company of U.S. soldiers who in France during World War I, just living through the worst of like the muck and the trenches and all of that, and who discover a fallen angel, basically, like on the battlefield.
Whoa!
And, like, they have to figure out. Yeah, it's amazing. And
by Daniel Krauss.
Daniel Krauss, thank you.
Yeah.
And you know, it deserved the Pulitzer. It deserved every accolade it's gotten. It's constructed like one big run-on sentence. Which, like, when I hear that, I'm like, oh, really? But it has this feeling of like,
That's what I was thinking.
It's almost like epic poetry, the way that it like the rhythm of it goes. Okay. It's amazing. But it's like these moments. It's not so much like periods in history. It's like aspects of history that I want. It's like that moment right there. What the heck was going on? What was it like to live through that? And that was some of the stuff that, especially during the second book, writing Hidden Palace, having to compress 15 years down into one book, you know, it was like I had to identify which like sort of flashpoints of history I was going to focus on, because otherwise it was just crazy. And so there was some stuff in there that I'm sure, the beginnings of modernism, of, you know, having to learn about like sort of the art and architecture of the time, and all of silent film. That was one thing that I wanted to get into the second book, and I ended up having to pull it out because it was just so overstuffed already. The way that silent film was like a lifeline for immigrants to the U.S. because you didn't need to know English. You didn't need to know another language in order to have like a cultural moment with the people around you where you're all watching the same thing and laughing at the same jokes. And so it became almost like a physical language of like, you turn your pocket inside out and that means you don't have any money, you know, like you put your hand, like that means like something's stinky, you know, just all that sort of, you know, the assimilation that happened through silent film. That was something I really wanted to get to, and I just couldn't. So yeah, different aspects, if not, you know, if not actual like periods of history.
Mm-hmm. That's so fascinating. I had never thought about that with silent film before.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's been, God, I could have, the number of times that I was researching, I was like, I could totally get a master's in this. And then I had to remember, okay, no, you're writing fiction. This is not a thesis. Yeah. Like, you know, you did that already. Just keep writing the book.
But I love that idea of media. It makes me think of my mom who connects with Korean people because of her love of Korean dramas.
Yes.
And like a Korean immigrant who barely speaks English, my mom who doesn't speak English, but they'll be like, we love this show, and like instant best friends.
Is it like that's amazing, right?
It's so true.
The way that you can bond over something like that.
Yeah. About high schoolers falling in love. Because that's just the one my mom loves to watch. But, yeah.
Okay. Favorite mythical being that's not a golem or a Jinni?
Ooh. I think my favorite mythical being is not a golem. I'd have to say a dragon.
Good answer.
Yeah.
And partly that's me representing my daughter, who is a dragon fanatic, and will read anything, watch anything that has to do with dragons. And, you know, she's 13. And so now she's getting to some of the more, you know, she made me read Fourth Wing. I'm like, I'm not sure I want you reading Fourth Wing, but I'll read it along with you just so I know what the heck you're reading, you know. Try to be the cool mom here, not, you know, oh my God. But she's 14 now. Oh my goodness. But yeah, just dragons being just such a versatile character idea that, you know, and the intelligence and the sense of just if you can earn yourself a dragon's trust and if you can bond with a dragon, and if you the Temeraire books by
Debbie brings them up all the time.
Just she was like one of the best to do it, right? Like the taking of the history, taking it and being like, okay, well, what if you had to convince the boat of the moral rightness of going and fighting the battle? Like, what if you had to like form a bond with your ship? What if that ship was another person, and sort of like how the ideas and the plots all fall out from there, and the fun things that she does with human history just by sort of injecting this idea, you know, just amazing stuff. And so I think a dragon, that'd be cool.
I love it. We have a whole episode about dragons and dragon lore, and we also talk about dragon girls, about how like a specific type of girl goes through a dragon phase, and they're usually very fiery, independent, smart. So I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you have a dragon girl.
Yeah, you have a dragon girl.
One of those. We got one of those. Definitely.
Like there's the horse girls and there's the dragon girls. Both are great and they have their own merits, but different journeys.
So my daughter rides horses, and she has a shirt that says, "I ride horses because they don't make dragons anymore."
Oh my God, I love your daughter.
I'm like, sounds great. We should have her on the show next.
She's pretty awesome.
We'll do a dragon episode interviewing her.
Okay. How long can you go? She'll take over.
Okay, last question. How do you find magic in your daily life?
Oh gosh, how do I find magic in my daily life? Reading, honestly.
Yeah.
It's and if I was more of an adventurous, like getting out into nature, getting out into the wilderness sort of person, maybe that would be my answer. But I am a suburban mom with 2 kids and a dog, and my daily magic really is just transporting myself out of my head and into someone else's through a book.
Story.
And it's, it feels like a small thing, and yet it's so huge. And that it's what keeps me, it's one of the things that keeps me sane. And it's one of the things that keeps me feeling like the thing I do may have some consequence in the world and in people's lives. So
yeah,
that's what I got to say.
I mean, I love that. Yeah, your book definitely had an effect on me, even though it's been 10 years, but I could see the embers of like my thoughts and stuff rereading the book 10 years later of things that I integrate into my personhood and into my viewpoint about the world. Kind of reminds me of the James Baldwin quote I really love, that reading connects you to everyone who has ever been alive. It's like one of my favorite Baldwin quotes. But so yeah, it is very reading is magical. I totally agree. So is nature, but who has time for that?
Well, we can read about it in our books.
Yes, best of both worlds.
Well, this was truly so fun. We went way over the hour. I think we're at an hour and a half. And we even like skipped over things in the notes, but this was, truly so fun. Do you have any final thoughts or because I know like the book's coming out in September. So are there, I don't know are you going to do any like tours with that? Like, can people see you in person, or how's that working?
We're starting to put some of that together, especially if you are like West Coast, say the East, the Bay Area, sort of Seattle area, possibly.
Portland?
Would love to go to Portland. We'll see how that works. Then like this fall. And the best way to find out about all of that would be to go to my website, helenewecker.com. You can sign up for my newsletter there. It's monthly right now. It might be a little more often than monthly as we get closer to the publication date of Gates of Midnight in September. But also you can, basically find out what I've been reading and what I've been up to and all of that in the newsletters too. So that's, I'd say your best way to learn more.
Awesome. And so for everyone who wants to continue on, the next book is called The Hidden Palace.
The Hidden Palace. And it's already out. It's in paperback. It's in every format you could want. And then the third book coming out in September is The Gates of Midnight.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see how our predictions play out.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to hear from us if we're like...
I was just going to say, let me know how when you find out how it pans out, let me know. What you thought.
And we're going to be like, no, but no, I think it's going to be, I'm excited. Well, this was so fun. Thank you so much for joining.
Helene, I told you right before that I was a little starstruck, but I'd be cool. Would you say I was cool?
You were cool. How was I? Was I cool?
Yeah. We're both cool cats. Cool cats.
Awesome. Yeah, this was truly just so fun. I love that we got to talk about this book. And thank you everyone for listening in. And hopefully you are as excited as we are for the next two books in this series. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
That's all for today. If you enjoyed the episode, follow More Magic on your favorite podcast platform to be notified of future episodes. And if you have the time, please rate and review to help us spread more magic to other fantasy readers. As always, if there's a book you want us to discuss, you can let us know at moremagicpodcast.com. In the meantime, we hope your current read becomes your next favorite, and we're sending you more magic.